Welcome back to another Bellows Blades knife review, and today, if you are a lover of large knives, then this review is for you because today we are going to be reviewing the Cold Steel Espada Large. So this is the large Espada. This does come in a medium, a large, and an extra large, and again, this one's the large. So I want to take a moment to just kind of go over this knife here. If you're somebody who likes carrying a large pocket knife, then this might be the perfect knife for you. So we're just going to go ahead and do a quick look at it, quick review, look at some of the specs, and give you some of my thoughts. I've actually had this knife for quite a while, and so I can give you kind of an unbiased opinion on it there. So again, very large knife. If you're somebody who likes large knives, and this might interest you. This thing comes in with a blade that is 5.5 inches long and an overall length of 12.25, which makes the handle 6.75. So again, I have large hands, and this thing is just a beast in the hand. One of the things that you'll notice is this version does have the G10 handles. They do make a version that's kind of a nicer version, polished version, and it's quite a bit more expensive. This is kind of the affordable option here when it comes to this style of knife, which is why I bought it. I wanted to make sure I liked it. Didn't want to spend the money that the nicer version had until I knew for sure whether or not I was going to like the knife. Now that I've determined that I do like the knife, I've just not felt the need to upgrade, although one of these days I may do that just because I do like the looks of the nicer Espada. But anyway, this version, I've had it for quite a while, so the blade steel on this is Cold Steel's AUS 8 or AUS 8A steel. And again, G10 handle scales. It's got the triad lock, which is a very strong lock, can hold a lot of weight and abuse on that lock without failing. And it's got this kind of unique thumb plate, and we'll talk about that here as well in just a minute. So this thing comes in weight-wise at 9.2 ounces, which is significantly heavier than most pocket knives, but is actually, for the size of the knife, a fairly light knife. It does not feel heavy in the hand by any means. And I think that G10 handle really helps with keeping that weight down. So, you know, yes, it's heavy compared to some pocket knives, but for the size, it's actually a very light knife for the size of the knife. One of the things that jumps out with you immediately about this knife is kind of the unique design. I love the kind of swooping clip point style blade. That thing just really appeals to me. I like clip point blades. And then it kind of has this kind of curved handle shape. Now with the extra large, you get a whole lot more of that, and it kind of, to me, is distracting. But with this version, it's just this little bit of a tail here to make sure that the whole blade's covered, and I think it works pretty well. You've got really deep finger grooves here to lock your hand into place, so when you're holding onto this knife, that thing's not going anywhere, whether you have it in a regular grip or whether you hold it in a reverse grip. You've got a very secure grip on the knife. So definitely locks, you know, around your pinky and around your front finger there, and it just really, just real tight lock up here as far as in your hand. And your thumb can kind of rest there on that thumb plate. Speaking about that thumb plate, so basically this is similar to like the Emerson Wave feature. So when this knife is closed, when you're pulling it out of your pocket, this can snag on your pocket and then snap the blade open. That is typically how I tend to open this knife. If you're going to open it with your thumb, you can do that, but you kind of have to use some wrist motion just because there's really tight detent there. And you got to be careful because that thing, once it starts to close, it hits a certain point and it wants to slap shut. And that would be like a guillotine, man. You don't want to like lop off a finger there with that heavy blade. And this thing is razor sharp right out of the box from Cold Steel. So Espada, I believe, is the Spanish word for sword, and that's really what this thing is. Cold Steel talks about these as like a pocket sword, and that's really what it is. But one of the things that I want to point out about it that's really cool, I think, with such a large knife, you do have a pocket clip that's reversible for left or right, but it's only tip-up carry, and that's, you know, obviously that's required to be able to use this feature here. But it's a fairly deep carry pocket clip considering the size of the knife. Yes, you have about 3/4 of an inch to an inch sticking out of your pocket, but it looks like a much smaller knife than it is when you're carrying it, and it fits very comfortably in a pocket, like a jeans pocket. I don't have any problem with the knife being too big for my pocket. So it doesn't feel nearly as big in the hand or in the pocket as it actually is. But that being said, just to give you an idea of how large this knife is, let's just do some real quick comparisons. So there is the comparatively tiny paramilitary here, the paramilitary 2, and you can tell that that is just a much, much smaller knife overall. The handle is so much longer, the blade is so much longer. Comparing it then to another cold steel, this is the relatively large Cold Steel Recon 1. And you can see comparatively, this thing's a baby, right? Similar handle styles, G10. The G10's a little less aggressive, which I like on the Espada than it is on the Recon. The Recon's really too aggressive. This is, I think, just the right amount. It's very aggressive, but it's right below the point where it'll shred your pocket. So you don't have to worry about it tearing up your pocket, but it's a really good grip in the hand. The Recon actually tears my pocket up quite a bit. So, but you can see here that the Recon's a fairly large knife as well. That is a big EDC for most people, and it's dwarfed by the large Espada. And then finally, another knife that people are kind of familiar with is the Ontario Rat 1. And you can see kind of the same deal, just much, much, much smaller overall than the Espada. So the Espada is a very, very large knife. In fact, you know, you get out your ruler and this thing's actually bigger than the ruler. Like I said, overall length is 12 1/4. So you can't even measure it with a ruler tip from the bottom to the tip of the knife. So just a big knife, a beast of a knife. That being said, I love the blade shape. I love that swooped kind of curved edge and that swooped clip point, needle sharp point on this thing. And I mentioned here that this thing comes, this one that I have came in the AUS 8 steel. Currently, I believe Cold Steel is selling these with their AUS 10A or AUS 10A steel, which is supposed to be just a little bit better than the AUS 8. I know in the past they've done some other versions of this knife with better knife steels. I know they had, I believe, the S35 VN at one point, and they also had offered this in the CTS XHP, which they offered quite a few of their knives in that steel for a little while, and then that kind of faded away. My understanding, it was hard to source that steel. So, but if you were lucky, you could pick one up either used or maybe you already did pick one up in the CTS XHP. But either way, that or the S35VN are both obviously superior steels to what's in this one, or even the current version with the AUS 10. So those are the steels, kind of the iterations of steels that this has gone through. As far as if you're somebody who likes a large knife, then you're probably going to love this thing. It definitely has the wow factor. It feels great in the hand. It feels much lighter, like I said, than you would expect. It actually carries well in the pocket, even for as big as it is. Now, I have never purchased the XL version. I've thought about it, but honestly, this thing's so big, I can't even imagine how large that XL version would have to be. I believe it's almost 2 inches longer in the blade. And so I think that's really, this one's overkill. That's way overkill. So I have not picked one of those up, but maybe one of these days I might do it just for the wow factor of flipping that thing out. You can see there when you open it one-handed, if you don't use wrist action, it's a real slow process because that is a fairly heavy blade and a real tight lockup and detent on that. So overall, guys, is this going to be most people's everyday carry? Absolutely not. This is not a knife that most people are going to EDC. But if you're a larger guy or you're somebody who just really likes larger knives, I think you would really like this knife. It really does feel great in the hand. It's built like a tank. The only thing for me, really, I like a larger knife, but I think about 5 inches is the longest I can go for an EDC. There's something about if you're out in public and you need to open a box or something, you just really don't want to be whipping out a knife this big. Well, maybe you do, but most people don't. It just attracts way too much attention and not the right kind. That being said, the knife itself, if you are interested in a large folding pocket knife, I really don't know that you can do much better than the Cold Steel Espada. Love this knife. Highly recommend it if you're into large folding knives. So once again, guys, if you enjoy the videos, please like and subscribe, and we will catch you next time with another review.